Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's guest. He is the founder of teelaunch and he helps people create products to sell online. Super excited to be talking to Christopher Hamze here. Hey, you're a perfect guest for today's podcast, that's for sure, to help people work from home. Are you ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock.
Awesome. So we always start here with a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business.
Yes, so we've had, although COVID, was tough for everyone, we kind of used that time to redo our entire app, and so we spent, about a year, and now it finally launched a few months ago, and so it's really was quite satisfying to get it completely. Basically, it was 7 years old at this point, and needed a lot of work, and so we just decided, roll up our sleeves and get it redone before this year. So
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's when there's a little bit of downtime, you might as well get into the factory or whatever it is, wherever you make your app, right?
yeah, exactly.
So now along our path, to self-employment and all that stuff, every once in a while we'll hit a bad note. And so I'm wondering, can you share something that didn't go quite as planned along that journey? And maybe if there's something that we can do to avoid that same problem if it happens to us?
Yeah, so in our business, we've taken quite a few pivots over the years because we kind of, you start out with I guess, an understanding or a thought of where you want to go and who you want to work with, and then you figure out that you're totally, totally off. And so, early on, we really focused on one type of customer, and that was like our whole world. And about, let's say, 4 years ago, that type of customer just went away. Like they just weren't. It's basically, it's kind of guys that use Facebook to sell products. A lot of foreign sellers. Just it wasn't. We didn't understand the customer, and so we really pivoted. And so kind of focus on other types, same kind of entrepreneurial spirited people, but we focus on Etsy, and so that was a real kind of turning point because really, at a certain level, people knew how to sell things one way, and as Facebook and the world kind of changes, people kind of forget or those techniques become less effective, and so we figured out, man, we need to find somewhere where customers can sell and people find their stuff kind of organically versus them having to only run ads in order to get someone to their site. And so when we kind of, really kind of gave Etsy a real good look and developed an app for it and really focused on it, was really a pivotal point in our business.
Wow. Okay, cool. So now, was this something that happened over time or did you just wake up one day and
It was over time, and we kind of just we saw it slowly eroding kind of the successes that our customers were having with the old model. And so for us as well, it was like, man, we put all of our energy into this one thing, Shopify. I mean, that was our world. And so the idea of like pivoting or redirecting our focus seemed like, do we kind of double down and put even more energy into this one channel, or do we kind of split our focus and see what else is kind of out there? And so it was a real pivotal point in our business because we never thought of anything else. And now kind of we're working with our new app and other platforms, we have so many different integrations in the works with other kind of other ways to sell, because at the end of the day, like, we don't care how you sell. Like, we just want to figure out how do we empower you and give you these products that if you want to sell door to door, if you want to sell on Facebook or Etsy or Amazon, like, just give you all the tools that you need to so you can be successful in whatever method you've determined is the the easiest way to sell.
So now to recap that, you must have been having some metrics that you're tracking, and then once those metrics started to go south, you guys decided to get together and figure out which way to pivot.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's the new installs. We're trending downward. Total sales are trending downward. Just talking to our customers, trying to figure out what we could do. Figured out it wasn't necessarily something anybody could do because it's just a so for example, like Facebook ads in the early days, I mean, you could sell a t-shirt for $1. Like, it was so ad cost was so easy because the competition was low, the costs were low, conversions were high, and then they just keep getting more complex and more complex. And the people that have kind of pivoted or found other ways to sell, they've stayed successful. And guys who are going to keep I guess throwing money at the old way of doing things, they went away. And so really was helpful for us to kind of open our eyes to the fact of what we do is not platform specific. It's not one selling model specific. It's really we have to be a bit more flexible in our view of the world. So
yeah. And you know what? That's a pretty common story because I think that as technology and the world just evolves, and I mean, I feel like things move faster nowadays. So something
Yeah.
that could be working today, you might wake up tomorrow and it's not working as well as it did before. So, I think you guys, were good to sort of like make a decision quickly instead of kind of like just letting it drag on and well, let's see what happens in the next few months. And you guys kind of took a step back and went, okay, we need to address this right now. And I think that's what all of us need to do is we need to recognize that things do change quickly. And so if things aren't working, maybe it's time to take a look at it, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's what things of, don't take your eye off the prize and don't like stop what you're doing, but you got to put a little bit of attention to figuring out what's the next thing and and just not being too, I guess, stuck in your ways. Because think about all the business models, of the past that if you didn't evolve, buggy whips and like, all these things are like, again, like there was a certain point in the world where this product was not sellable, or this way of selling. Think of, direct mail or catalogs or just things where you could have focused your energy 100% on that all day, every day. It wasn't going to work because the way the world and technology evolved away from that, that way of selling. So.
And now when you made that pivot, did you abandon the old method or
No, 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 no. We made an effort to just split our focus, but in a meaningful way. So obviously, development resources became available for the new channels. Customer service had to figure out how to service, two types of customers. The marketing team had to figure out how do we speak to two, because really there's some overlap, but they're different types of people. The traditional model was basically, guys who their whole life was, I know Facebook ads and I can sell anything versus the Etsy model. It's a lot of, stay-at-home moms, retired people, like who are just looking for something fun to do. They're a bit more artistic. So it was definitely a learning curve to figure out how to, but once you've done it once, then the next, diversion or, pivot to another type of person or selling model or whatever, it's been much easier. So.
Right on. Cool. So now, a lot of people, when they start their, work at home business, they might be doing it alone, but eventually you're going to need to gather some people around you and, form your band, so to speak. And it sounds like you've got one. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been a long journey because I'm the kind of guy that just thinks, let's just work personally harder and then you don't need a team. But that worked for the first few years, but then it definitely, that was bottlenecking our growth, because first of all, you can't be good at everything. Like we're trying to do accounting and marketing and customer service and development, like one person could never give 100% focus to all those things. And so I've slowly been building out, now we're up to probably about 20 people on our team. So, and each one takes a focus. So they're actually committed and focused on one thing. And so it's very important. I mean, obviously early on, if you don't have I'm not saying you should spend, your last dollar or go into debt, to hire this band. But once you have the funds, don't be cheap. Like that was my kind of my 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 wrong way of thinking is, hey, if I hire this person, now I'm gonna personally lose, $25,000 a year because now this money has to go to them and not to my pocket. But then you realize that once you've freed yourself up and have enough people that can take things off your plate, you're gonna help yourself make more money in the long run versus the money you quote unquote lost by hiring more people. So.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice too. And, especially not to be cheap because, yeah, I mean, you want to make sure you're getting the right person in that role. And in order to get the right person in that role, you're probably going to need to pay them appropriately, right?
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just, I'll see who charges the least and hire them. And it's probably not going to get you where you want to go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So now what about keeping the hat full? What about keeping the cash flow going and the sales going? Like what do you do to sort of keep up on that and make sure that you're taking in more than you're putting out?
Yeah, for us, we're a very conservative company. We've never taken any sort of funding. We haven't had any loans for almost 5 years. So we kind of like, we determine what's left over and then how we allocate what's left over, So for us, we try to have a good buffer, basically enough runway. So if something did shift, aren't, scrambling and make, poor decisions. So we grow really slow. So basically, once our buffer is, I guess, exceeds what we need to keep, then we start hiring more people. And we figure out, okay, once the Let's say new signups, get to a certain point, then we spend money on, advertising, and we you kind of have to. It's really almost these days. A lot of people like to just throw money at problems, for us versus we want to actually take the time to think it through. And so, for example, like marketing, right now, if you want to buy the term print on demand Shopify in Google, it's over $20 per click. So there's no way you're going to be able to make any sort of a profitable ROI on acquiring customers that way. So we figure out ways to how do we create content, go on podcasts like yourself, or create blog posts, or interact on Reddit, and figure out how do we get people to know who we are without spending money, just spending our time and energy in building some sort of meaningful content that they would find useful. But yeah, you always have to be, even when it seems like it's busier than you can imagine. Like last year, COVID was kind of the early part of the year was actually really people, people were stuck inside. A lot of the stuff we sell was pretty popular, and we didn't take any time to, I guess, bask in the glory of busyness. We kind of just doubled down and really kept pushing hard to acquire new customers and keep them happy, because obviously it's easier to keep a customer than it is to find a new one. So for us, we always like keep a buffer. Don't go too crazy on personal chefs and big buildings, and really find a way to not be too stingy and try to just hoard all your cash, but also make smart decisions so you don't run out of cash and then have to make hard decisions later. Because our biggest thing is, like, I never want to get to the point where I have to lay off people because it's slow. So I'd rather just make sure that I've grown in such a way where that's not even a real possibility. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I like what you said about throwing money at problems, because a lot of people really do that, and then there's the opposite side of the coin where they don't want to spend any money on anything at all. But I like what you're saying about just try to figure out ways to use time to solve problems rather than money. And then if it gets to the point where it's taking too much time for you, then you could actually throw your money at somebody who can spend the time to get right.
Exactly.
So you can hire somebody. And then, like you say, I mean, if you sort of grow cautiously, then you'll never be in a situation where you're getting rid of people because you needed them in the first place, and you still do, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. So now, what about tools? I mean, instruments, I guess, in terms of music, but what is it that you guys use, on a regular basis to get your work done, I guess?
Yeah, in the early days, we weren't really focused on this. We thought, let's just use email, and and it's crazy how efficient you get when you just decide to embrace different tools. So like we use Slack a lot. Like I'm on Slack 24 hours a day. It's way easier to communicate than email. It's easier. Like my Slack is 6 years old, so I have messages from 6 years ago. Where if I had a question on, hey, I'm sure I, had this question before, I could just type in the Slack, and there you go. We use Jira for project management. Absolutely love Jira. And now that we have basically 20 employees in two different locations in the US, and one in a different country, like we have to find a way to keep things organized. Because before you could, like, you can give someone a task via Slack and kind of check up on them, but you don't know if it's done. You don't know where you're at. You don't plan. Because that's one thing where if you don't use any tools, it's really hard to plan. And you need to plan. So now you figure out, okay, my goal is to have this done in 6 months, and this done in a year, and this done 2 years from now. If you don't use tools, it's never going to happen. I really love Loom. Like I do a lot of screen recordings. Just customers have questions, or my team has questions, and I absolutely love it because you can, it's the easiest way to record something and then send a link. We use Dropbox a lot because obviously we're trying to share files between all these different people, and it's way easier to have Dropbox than have like a shared hard drive or anything else. And those are the main ones. Yeah, really. I mean, between Slack and Jira, that's 90% of my day can be spent on one of those two things. So
Now, when you started to adopt these tools, was that something that you adopted early on, or did you sort of figure out that you needed them after you started to lose productivity?
yeah, no, we definitely did it the hard way. It's one of those things where I don't know if it was cheapness or what, but we just didn't think it was necessary. Like, oh, we're not that big, because at the early days, we were 5 people, and you're 5 people in the same room. So it's like, why do I need a project management tool when I can just yell over and say, did you get that done? But we realized that even if you're in the same room, like there's no way to keep people accountable, and there's no way to plan if you don't have, you don't use some sort of some sort of tool set. And then the fun part is too is they all communicate with each other now. So it's quite intriguing how it all just plays in together and how much more efficient you can be. And then once you're adding on new team members, so before it's like, hey, we had a process that was like me talking to you. It only works between me and you. Now you add in a third person. How does that work? You have to explain to them this crazy system that only you and this other person know. Versus if you already use a system that people are familiar with. So I would guess most professionals that use Slack for sure, and a lot of them in the development committee use Jira. They just know what the system is. They understand it. The learning curve has been decreased, and so yeah, we definitely did the hard way. But I definitely, even if you're to be honest, even if you're a one-man show, I would still, start using some of these tools, because then when you start hiring employees or building a team, it'd be much easier and you don't have to waste any energy. Either reteaching yourself how to do it, or your new team how to do it. So.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Yeah, and I mean, I use Slack as well. You're right. I think there's a lot of people that do, and I use a different tool other than Jira. But I mean, that's the thing, is that when your team is small, that's when it's a really good time to implement all these tools, because then you get an opportunity to set up some systems, and you could even put together some onboarding systems with something like Loom, and screen share all the stuff that you're doing, and just send that to the new employee that gets started working for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that nowadays the tools are real slick, and like you say, they all communicate with each other, so you can sign tasks into one and it just goes to somewhere else. Yeah. I think we're living in a golden age of tools for sure right now. Right on. So now it's time for your guest solo. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so teelaunch, we have we create print-on-demand products for you to sell online. So print-on-demand is basically where you don't have to hold any inventory. So every product you create and sell, we make it when the order comes in. So basically, you could have 10,000 different designs in your store, and it wouldn't cost you anything. And as the order comes in, we take the kind of the print file and the mock-up that you've created, we print it, ship it, send it to your customers. So it's really the fastest, cheapest way to get started in e-commerce, because you don't have any, there's no cost, there's no real barriers beyond obviously understanding, what you want to sell and how to design it. So, we focus on Shopify and Etsy, our two-man platforms, but we've been working on this new app for a year, and we have a lot of really fun stuff coming out for Q3 of this year. A really nice personalizer. So right now, most of our business is personalized. So you think about when someone orders a canvas, you can order a canvas that says "I love my mom," but it's much more powerful if it's "I love my mom" and here's a picture of her. And so our customers have been very successful with kind of photo and text personalization. So we're leaning into it with all of our new kind of technology and stuff. And so we have some really fun stuff coming out end of the year.
So now, what would be like an ideal person that you'd be looking for as a potential person who would want to use your platform?
Yeah, so it's we have kind of few different use cases, but it's basically any person, if it's a college student, single parent, retired person, anybody who wants to make money from their house, because it's one of those businesses where I think most people get too uptight about what do I sell and who do I sell to. Everybody already knows a lot of people, and these people are already, if they know it or not, they're buying print-on-demand products. Think about Custom Ink or Redbubble or Society 6. Those are all print-on-demand products that these people are probably already buying from random people, versus like all you got to do now is basically set up a store on Shopify or Etsy, and then you just sell to people and sell them stuff that they'll like because you know them. So it's much easier than I think people think, and so we're really excited to see last year just a humongous boom in regular people that their goal is to make $200 a month, and we love those people because they're passionate, they're hardworking. They really understand what we're trying to do. So that's kind of the person we're looking for.
So would a person need to be like a designer or something like that to design this stuff?
So there's so many, I guess, free piece of software and artwork, and it's not necessary. Like I'd say some of our most successful coffee mug designs have just been words, black words on a white mug. Like I think people, they overthink, what the kind of the skill set they need. And then also with all these personalized product we're selling, you can basically sell throw up a site and say, hey, I'm just selling, you upload your photo of your kid on this canvas. And don't need to design anything. There's nothing I have to do. All I have to do is get this product in front of my friends and family. So, it's much easier than it used to be. Obviously in the early days, there's a pretty big barrier, but with Canva and Now Photoshop is way more economical. There's a lot of ways where you can, like for example, my mother, she just retired from teaching after 22 years and never sold a single thing online, never designed the product. And she made an Etsy store, 2 years ago, and she's selling, $20,000-$30,000 worth of stuff a year, with no design time. I mean, again, you don't need a lot of talent because again, text-based, simplistic designs actually sell the best, and anybody can, just type in text in a box. So
Love it.
it's not, it's definitely not as scary as people want to make it out to be. So just gotta give it a shot.
So what you guys do is you help them to set up the store, or do you also help them to market the store too, or?
Yeah, so we allow them to create the product. So our app will basically make it'll set up the mock-up, it'll create the product in your store. We just really focus on the products and fulfillment. We are working on a lot of other pieces to help people with marketing, because it's definitely a much harder proposition than it used to be. And we've dealt with, over 200,000 people over the last, 7 years that we have a good idea what it takes to be successful. So now we're trying to use that knowledge and be a bit more proactive in educating our customers than we used to be in the past.
Love it. Okay. So really, I mean, if someone wanted to, let's just say that someone wants to start working from home, but they don't have a product yet, they don't have anything they want to sell, this is where you guys come in. You guys can actually help them to develop that product, I guess, quote unquote, and then get into the field of like learning how to sell it and learning all that stuff. So you could be a really good first step into working from home.
Exactly. Yeah. So really what we tell people is anybody can do it, and they don't even have to know how to do any sort of marketing. Because think of all the people that you know and all the things they buy online. Think about holiday cards at Christmas, T-shirts for your kids' basketball team. Think about Father's Day and Mother's Day. You're already buying blankets and pillows and canvas, and so really all you have to do is just sign up with teelaunch, sign up with Shopify or Etsy, and then just at the beginning, just go after your friends and the family, explain to them like, hey, I started this business, I would love your support. And really like what they're selling, they can double their money and it's still cheaper than a lot of these other places. Like for example, I was doing a little analysis of if you were to order 20 shirts from Custom Ink, a 2-color design that says, whatever, something basketball team. For what we charge you, which is $8.50, Custom Ink charges $17 for 20 shirts. So you can make $80 on 20 shirts without even lifting a finger. So like again, it's fun because I've seen so much success with it over the last year that we're really kind of doubled down on kind of showing people that if your goal is to make $200 a month, I'm super confident I can show how to do that, but just using the people that you already know first. Because again, what happens a lot of times, people like, hey, I gotta spend $1,000 on Facebook ads to have a real business. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, start with people understand them, the market, the products, and then if you want, you've got that point where you're saying, hey, I have extra money, I want to try Facebook, I want to try Google, go for it. But start with the people because it's free, and then you get to keep every dollar that you sell, and you're not going to get this point where you've blown $1,000 and you've given up. Because that's the biggest problem in this industry is people give up. Like I said, we've had 200,000 customers. The vast majority of them, try for 3 to 6 months, they don't become rich and they quit. Versus like, what I'm trying to tell people, start with a small manageable goal, $200, and say, okay, at $200, you basically have to sell, say you buy a coffee mug from us for $3.50, you sell for 15. Basically, you just got to sell, 15 items to make $200. That's a much more realistic, doable number than trying to say, hey, I got to sell thousands of items to pay for, a bookkeeper and a marketing agency and all these other things that you're not there yet. Start very, very slow.
Love it. That's awesome, Christopher. That's so cool. So how do we find out more about this?
Yes, just go to teelaunch.com. You can make an account, see all the products that we offer, see the 2 integrations that we have, and then if you have any questions, you can either message me at christopher@teelaunch.com, or you can talk to my support staff. But we're definitely we're there for you, and any questions you have about the model, the business, and just how to get started. Best information to give people is just try. It doesn't cost you anything, just a little bit of your time. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how easy it is to sell things to your friends and family.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. Appreciate it.
Cool. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.